I want to introduce Attorney Griess, Jim Niesen as the Artistic Director and Executive Director of the Irondale Ensemble Project. Hey Jim, are you out there? Wow, that light is very bright. Can we stand there right now? Can we stand over there? You go first.
I shall. Terry always knows it's better to go on next to Cleveland. But a couple things I'm going to tie up here right now. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes? No? All right, okay. Anyway, 41 years ago, Terry, Barbara, and I were hired by the irreplaceable Edgar Rosenblum to open up the experimental theater at the Long Wharf in New Haven. Our focus was improvisation, education, and community outreach. 40 years ago, not 41, 40, I was rambling around in a paperback bookshop in New Haven. And I stumbled upon a book called Something Wonderful Right Away, an oral history of the Second City. And there was one essay, one interview in there that absolutely turned my head and my life around. I immediately brought it back and I showed it to Terry and Barbara, and they agreed it well. It was about how theater can be about more than just making plays, and what is a much greater purpose for it. And that interview was with this gentleman over here, Mr. Alda. Edgar's wife, Cornelia Rosenblum, is also here. I'm not sure where she is. Oh, there she is, right in the front. So two of the most important people in our lives are sitting right here next to you. We have such thanks to offer all of you, as well as thanks to all of you who came tonight, and our incredible staff who have carried on the work we looked at so many years ago, where they can go in one day from doing a 4-hour Shakespeare play to the next morning teaching 10-year-old students about science, and that afternoon teaching middle school kids about how to improv and how to really communicate with each other. Thank you all so much. You can't imagine how much I appreciate you.
Thank you, Irondale.
For 35 years, I have been truly blessed. I've gotten to wake up every morning to do work that I believe in more than anything in the world. And I have been supported by a family and a group of artists who are, bar none, the best in the business. And for that, I thank you all for supporting this work, because this has been a life's work. When I first read that interview with you, Alan, about improvisation and the effect it had on you and on other actors, it really affected me. And since then, I have used improvisation in so many different ways. Now, I'm lucky enough to be teaching for Alan's organization, the Alda Center for Community. That's been a mantra for me. That's led us to our work with the New York City Police Department. It's led us through our work in the New York City school system. And everything we do is about the other person. It's about the other. The genius is in the other. And I thank you for being that other person. I see so many people around us tonight who have been the backbone, the support of this theater, and kept it going against all odds for 35 years. There's no reason for an Irondale to exist except for you. And I thank you for that. We had great videos, Alan, which I'm going to send to you tomorrow.
I want a copy too.
We have greetings from Victor Garber.
We can still watch them. Don't spoil
Carl
it.
Reiner. Marlo Thomas and Phil Donahue wrote a song for you. And my nephew Dylan, where's Dylan? Dylan's back there. My nephew Dylan edited the films beautifully, but we can't see them.
Yes, we can. Yes,
But I'm
they're
gonna send them to you
working.
tomorrow.
They're working?
They work.
So we'll put them on after.
I have a man crush on Alan Alda. I'm not ashamed to admit it. When I met him through the work that I've been doing with his organization, I was a little bit overwhelmed. The first time I ever taught a class was in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and I started to teach my first exercise, and in walks Alan. And I thought, oh my God, I'm teaching improv in front of Alan Alda. And he was so generous. He was so gracious. He had such a good time at that moment. There's no better person for us to honor with the Edgar Rosenblum Award. And I'd like to bring up Professor Brian Greene. Are you out here there somewhere? Yes, he is. I see a hand.
There he is.
Professor Brian Greene is going to present the M. Edgar Rosenblum Award.
Don't touch the red button.
The scary mic. Will it last? So very quickly, 20 years ago, I'm sitting in my office at Columbia University. The telephone rings, and there's a familiar voice on the other end of the line. I'm trying to place it, and all he says to me is, "Are you Brian Greene?" I said, "Yes." He says, "I need to learn some physics." And it's Alan Alda who's calling me to learn some physics, because he was playing Richard Feynman, you know, the famous physicist, in a play called QED. And he said to me that he had to talk all of this physics jargon, but he didn't understand it. And he said, how can I be authentic? How can I be real in front of an audience of people if I'm talking about something that I don't understand? A very refreshing idea, especially in the world today. I wish others would have that perspective. But anyway, so we had conversation after conversation about quantum electrodynamics. We had conversations about the electron spin. We had conversations about photons tunneling through barriers and how they know how to behave according to the laws of Schrodinger and Pauli and Dirac and all of the great physicists of the 20th century. So he goes off and does play Feynman in QED. This is in the theater Mark Taper Forum, I guess, in Los Angeles, if I'm not mistaken. And then he generously calls me up and says, would you come to the final performance? So I did. And afterwards, it was fantastic. Afterwards, we went out to dinner. And I assumed, that was the first time we ever met, I assumed we would talk a little bit about MASH, TV, you know, the things that a physicist doesn't usually have entree into. But we get to dinner, and all Alan wants to do, and by the way, this is the last performance, right? So he's not doing it anymore. All he wants to do is talk more physics. Physics all night long, right? Until the maitre d' comes over and just gently, politely says, the waitstaff really does have to go. So this, to Alan, is so deep and real, right? So that show, right, it was charming, it was entertaining, it was insightful, it was informative, but it was really about the ideas. It was about taking ideas of physics that were channeled by an incredible character, Richard Feynman, and the play was about bringing that out to an audience in a way that was enriching and organic and real and impactful. And that's what Alan is all about. Now, this is a wonderful award that he's getting, and many of you know all about Alan. I'm going to finish up with just telling you one little fact that you perhaps don't know about Alan. So Alan and I, we were being interviewed together years later, this is quite recently, by the New York Times for an event that we were doing together. And at the end of the interview, the interviewer says, look, I want to give a little challenge to the both of you, right? Because Alan is an artist who does science. I'm a scientist who dabbles a little bit in these other realms as well. So they said, let's see who can do better. So Alan's challenge was, explain string theory. He does an amazing job, right? I'm sitting there and I'm like, wow, everything's spot on accurate. Wow, great job. Then my challenge is, I had to hum the theme song to match. So I go forward boldly, right? And I hum it all the way through, and at the end, Alan turns to me and says, "That was the theme song to F-Troop." Wow, there we go. Perfect, thank you. So, which is all just to say, I expect that Alan is the only recipient of this award who not only uses theater and all of the arts to communicate, convey important ideas, not only the kind of person that can inspire this generation and generations to come, but I suspect he's the only honoree who can accurately, fully, and spot on explain unified field theory.
Yeah.
So with that, do I present this award? Is that how this works? I get to present the award, no envelope to open or anything. All right, so.
God, I hope I win.
Yeah, so, and the winner is. So it is my great honor to present to Alan Alda the M. Edgar Rosenblum Award.
Unbelievable that I have to follow Brian Green. Thank you for this wonderful, thank you, Terry, for this proposal for me, okay? Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Brian, and thank you all for being here. I see so many faces from the Center for Communicating Science, and Patrick, Carl, and so many people who I'm really touched to see here. Thank you so much. But I want you to know how valuable your presence is. I don't know if you heard before when I quieted everybody down because there were two people going to get up and do something. I don't know if you really got, because the sound wasn't so good and you were at the other end of the room. It was an extraordinary thing. You heard a talk by someone who had been stopped by the police and sort of abused in a light way, but felt abused by the cop. What you may not have realized if you were in the back of the room was you were hearing a policewoman give a talk that she had got from meeting a real woman in the community who had been through that experience, and she had taken on her persona as part of the program that Irondale does to bring the police and the community together. And the guy who got up and talked as a policeman was a member of the community who had done the same thing. They start out with improvisation, and in the course of a 10-week program, they have the cops go out and find out what it's like to be a member of the community. And the members of the community go out and find out what it's like to be a cop. And they take on one another's perspective, which is the essence of the principles of improv. They may not talk about the principles of improv, but they teach them, and their program emanates them. It swirls around them. For instance, the idea of yes and. If you know anything about improv, you've heard of yes and. It comes from being in a scene where you're playing the scene and somebody says something and you don't block the person's effort. You don't block the scene, the movement forward. Somebody says, look at all the water that's at our feet. Well, the place is covered with water. You don't say, that's not water, that's the stage. You get a laugh out of that from the audience, but the scene is dead. And the same thing happens in real life when somebody says, I see the world this way. And you say, yes, but I see it this way. The yes, but is the same as saying no. But if you can say, just like in the scene, yeah, look at all that water. Yes, and let's jump in the water. Let's grab onto that turtle and go someplace. All of a sudden, you're together. Before you were two separate people. Now you're swimming together. And that's what they do at Irondale. In addition to the incredibly imaginative plays they put on, they have this program that brings together the community and the police. You know, we live in a time, we all know this, we live in a time that's so divisive. There's not as much trust as there ought to be, not as much trust as there used to be. And the very institutions that we depend on to defend us and protect us are not trusted by so much of our fellow countrymen. The government, Congress, the press, even the cop on the corner. And somebody is doing something about it. It's the people in this room who run Irondale. They're dedicated and they're brilliant. And if you can contribute to their effort, they've been doing it for 35 years, you'd think by now they'd be rich doing it. On the other hand, you're all called together to help. Please help. I want to be an example. So I'm a member of a board of a very small foundation. And one of the rules of the foundation is that the board members get to have a discretionary donation that they can give to any nonprofit of their choice. And we can give $10,000, so you're getting $10,000. I don't want to be the only one tonight giving $10,000. Don't let me be lonely. Give $10 if you can. Call that number on your iPhone. Everybody's got an iPhone in your pocket or your pocket. What's the number they call?
What's the number they call Inspire 2018?
You died. I don't understand this. I never donated.
You got a
to my
text.
iPhone.
5015?
I go to the text message app, right? And I write it. Thank you very much.
Inspire.
I type in Inspire 2018. What does it mean to 50155? What does that mean? Well, first of all, I get in touch with Inspire 2018. No, this is very confusing. I have a Center for Communicating Science. We need to communicate phone numbers. By the way, Terry is brilliant at teaching at the Center for Communicating Science. We've trained in 9 years, we've trained 12,000 scientists and medical professionals. And many of them have been trained by Terry. But I'm being serious. I don't think anybody's going to follow these directions. They go to the app, the messaging, they type in Inspired 2018, or they ignore that. All they type in is 50155.
And then they write the text.
And then they write the text Inspired 2018. And then do they say how much they're giving, or do we just take a get a link back? I got a better idea. Put in your bank account number. I swear we'll only take what we need.
Jim, yes. Jim, where's Jim? Come up here. We're going to do a picture. This
It's fine already upstairs.
Edgar Rosenblum
It's already on the
was
dress
very important part of our lives. We don't give out this award cavalierly. I won't touch the red button. We don't give this award out cavalierly. It takes us a long time to figure out who the perfect person is, and we just trying to get it for years. We sent a letter backstage last time you were in New York.
I don't answer my mail.
I know. Figured that out. But we couldn't get you last time. We got you this time, and there's no better person to honor.
Whoa.
Now, I have also just been informed that in the screening room upstairs, the videos are working.
Yeah.
All those greetings from Carl
Great.
and Victor and Sarah and Marlo and
This
Phil.
trophy is getting very heavy.
Oh yeah.
It's hysterical.
And what?
Will it be on the Irondale website?
I hope so. We have to ask permission, but yes, we hope so. But if you want to come upstairs and see the Irondale video, a little bit about the company, and we'll show the congratulatory video first.
Yeah.
So come on upstairs.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Get everything?
I think I got it all. We're still streaming upstairs right now. Except this.
As they say.
Their videos are already upstairs, they already work.
I was talking to tech back there.
up to the computers upstairs.
Yeah, it already works upstairs.
She said,
It's a good spot.
how long does this go till tonight?
No big deal. Hi, everybody. We're having a good time at Irondale Inspire 2018. Go Alan Alda. I'm gonna just pause. We're gonna